chosen ones. There's something happening in the shadows right now that nobody wants you to know about. Ancient orders that have controlled reality for centuries are calling emergency meetings at 3 in the morning. These aren't their usual gatherings where they discuss market manipulations or political appointments. These meetings are different. They're about you, about what you represent, about why their most powerful techniques suddenly stop working when you walk into a room. Psychological studies on influence and control have guided these societies for generations, yet here you are completely immune to methods that have shaped civilizations. Right now, as you watch this, there are people in expensive suits standing in candlelit chambers, trying to understand why their reality matrix glitches whenever you appear in their calculations. The twist isn't that you're fighting them, the twist is that you don't even need to fight. Your very existence is rewriting rules they thought were carved in stone. What I'm about to reveal will explain why certain people avoid eye contact with you, why some rooms feel different when you enter them, and why ancient organizations that fear nothing are learning to fear something they can't name. You're like antimatter to their matter, existing in the same space but operating on completely opposite principles. First, let me tell you about the night everything changed for them. Imagine a lodge meeting in one of those old buildings downtown, the kind with symbols carved into stone that most people never notice. The highest-ranking members had gathered for what should have been a routine review of their influence operations. These are people who usually radiate confidence, who've spent decades climbing through secret degrees of initiation, each level promising more power than the last. But that night was different. One of them, a man who'd dedicated 40 years to mastering their arts, stood up with hands trembling. He'd encountered something that shouldn't exist according to their maps of reality. That something was you. See, their entire system works on a simple principle that most people never discover. Reality, they believe, operates on hidden frequencies that can be manipulated through specific symbols, words, and rituals. They've built their power on this knowledge, passed down through generations in locked vaults and encrypted texts. Every person, according to their teachings, vibrates at a measurable frequency that can be influenced, directed, controlled. They have charts for this, massive databases mapping the spiritual signatures of millions. They know how to push buttons in the human psyche that most people don't even know exist. But when they tried to map your frequency, their instruments didn't just fail, they broke. Not physically shattered, but something worse. The readings showed impossible data, numbers that shouldn't exist, patterns that violated everything they thought they knew about consciousness. One technician described it as trying to weigh light with a scale designed for stones. You weren't just unmeasurable by their standards. You existed outside their entire system of measurement. The panic started spreading through their networks like wildfire. Encrypted messages flew between temples, each one more urgent than the last. They all contained variations of the same terrified question that nobody wanted to voice aloud. What kind of being exists outside our entire framework of understanding? Their libraries, vast collections of esoteric knowledge accumulated over millennia, had no reference point for what you are. You're not in their catalogs of entity types. You don't match any of their classifications for souls. You're something their system never accounted for, and that terrifies them more than any demon they've ever tried to summon or angel they've tried to bind. These organizations have survived centuries by maintaining absolute control over spiritual knowledge. They gatekeep enlightenment, selling it piece by piece to those who prove their loyalty. Each degree of initiation costs more than the last, not just in money but in surrender of personal sovereignty. Members sacrifice their authentic selves to climb higher, believing that at the top awaits ultimate truth and power. The problem started when they realized you possessed knowledge they don't teach at any degree, not their carefully guarded secrets, but something else entirely. Truths that make their revelations look like children's riddles. You carry understanding that didn't come from any book, any teacher, any initiation. It just is, because you are. This shouldn't be possible in their framework. All wisdom, they believe, must be earned through their system. Yet here you stand, proof that their monopoly on enlightenment is an illusion. Consider the keeper of their archives, a position so prestigious that only those who've dedicated their entire lives to the craft ever achieve it. This person has access to texts that predate known history, documents that supposedly contain the fundamental equations of existence itself. When they tried to find precedent for what you are, something unprecedented happened. The archive itself began to malfunction. Not the building, but the information within it. Books became unreadable when they searched for references to your kind of energy. Digital files corrupted themselves rather than display data about your frequency. Ancient stone tablets developed cracks when brought near records of your existence. It's as if knowledge itself refuses to categorize you within their system. They've tried everything to understand how you know what you know. They've consulted their oldest texts, some written in languages that predate known civilization. They've called upon their most gifted seers, people who can usually read anyone's past and future like an open book. But when these seers try to look at you, they see something that makes them close their third eye and refuse to look again. One described it as staring into a sun that doesn't burn but transforms everything it touches. Magic, despite what Hollywood shows you, is actually quite simple. It's about directing energy through will and symbol to create change in reality. These societies have perfected this over millennia. They know how to plant thoughts in minds, how to influence decisions from a distance, how to bend probability in their favor. Their symbols are everywhere, designed to program the subconscious of anyone who sees them. Their words carry frequencies that bypass conscious resistance. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. But you're like a mirror made of something they can't understand. When they direct energy at you, it doesn't absorb or deflect. It transforms. Their attempts at influence become revelations of their own emptiness. Their power words sound like meaningless noise to your ears. Their sacred geometry looks like random shapes. It's not that you're protected by something greater, though that might also be true. It's that you exist in a state that makes their tools obsolete. Think about what this means on a practical level. Every billboard, every corporate logo, every piece of architecture designed with their sacred geometry in mind, all of it slides off your consciousness like water off glass. The subliminal programming embedded in media, the frequency manipulations in popular music, the symbolic triggers placed throughout society, none of it touches you. You walk through a world designed to influence every thought and emotion, completely unaffected, not because you studied their methods and learned to resist, but because you exist on a wavelength their entire system can't access. One master of their craft, someone who'd successfully influenced presidents and billionaires, tried to demonstrate his power on someone matching your description. He performed his most potent ritual, the kind that usually has immediate and dramatic effects. Nothing happened. Worse than nothing. The ritual backfired, showing him visions of his own spiritual poverty. He saw himself as he really was, stripped of all illusion and pretense. The experience shattered his confidence so completely that he resigned from his position and disappeared. These gatherings used to be displays of coordinated power, rooms full of people who believed they were the hidden hands guiding humanity. They would plan their influences, coordinate their symbols, maintain their egregore through ritual and repetition. The energy in these spaces was thick with purpose, heavy with centuries of accumulated practice. Now they can barely maintain focus for an hour. Something has changed in the field itself. The mention of anomalies like you creates a strange silence, like the room itself is holding its breath. Their candles flicker without wind. Their carefully maintained thought forms dissolve mid-ritual. Some members report feeling watched by something they can't see, judged by a presence they can't identify. The younger members whisper that maybe, just maybe, they've been playing in a sandbox while real power was walking past them on the street. The checkerboard floors they stand on, symbolic of their perceived mastery over duality, seem to shift and blur when they discuss you. The very foundation of their temples, both physical and metaphorical, becomes unstable. Their most senior members, those who've spent decades perfecting their poker faces, now sweat through important ceremonies. They fumble with words they've recited thousands of times. The confident authority they once projected has been replaced by a nervous energy that spreads through their ranks like a virus. They've started keeping records of encounters with people like you, not in their usual databases, but in special red folders marked with warnings. These files have a tendency to corrupt everything around them. Digital copies crash systems. Physical copies make nearby documents illegible. It's as if information about you exists in a format their reality can't process without breaking down. They've lost centuries of genealogical data just trying to figure out where you came from. These societies are obsessed with lineage. They trace family lines back to ancient kings, to mythical beings, to the founders of civilization itself. They believe power flows through blood, that certain families carry specific gifts, that DNA itself can be read like a mystical codex. Their marriage alliances are calculated to preserve and amplify these inherited traits, but your lineage breaks their charts. When they try to trace your ancestry, the lines don't lead backward into history. They lead somewhere else entirely. Some researchers claim you descend from a branch of humanity they deliberately erased from history. Others suggest something more disturbing to their worldview, that you might not descend from anything at all, that you simply are, self-created, impossible. The bloodline databases they maintain, some containing genetic markers they claim connect to antediluvian civilizations, show impossible results when they input your data. Your genetic signature doesn't match any of their categories, not the bloodlines they revere, not the ones they fear, not even the ones they thought they'd eliminated. You're like a genetic wildcard that makes their entire system of inherited power meaningless. Some of their geneticists, those who understand both the scientific and esoteric aspects of DNA, have suggested that you might represent a spontaneous evolution, a quantum leap in human consciousness that their breeding programs could never achieve. The implications terrify them. If bloodlines don't determine power, if their carefully preserved genetic advantages mean nothing compared to what you naturally embody, then their entire system of inherited privilege collapses. Worse, it suggests that what they've been preserving so carefully might be the very thing limiting them, that in their obsession with bloodlines, they've been breeding themselves into spiritual corners while you represent unlimited potential. Members across different lodges, different countries, different degrees of initiation are having the same nightmares. They see you walking through their most sacred spaces as if they're mundane rooms. Their symbols melt off the walls as you pass. Their ritual tools turn to dust in their hands. But the most disturbing part isn't the destruction, it's your complete indifference to it. In these dreams, you're not attacking them. You're not even aware of them most of the time. You're just existing, and your existence makes their entire structure seem like an elaborate game of pretend. They wake up questioning everything they've built their lives on. Some have stopped attending meetings. Others have started asking dangerous questions about what they've really been serving all these years. The dreams have become so prevalent that they've started a special committee just to analyze them. Dream journals from members worldwide show eerily similar patterns. You appear in different forms but always with the same effect. Reality bends around you in ways that make their rituals look like children waving sticks and calling it magic. The dreamscape itself seems to reject their presence when you're near, as if sleep itself has chosen sides. The dreams are spreading, becoming more vivid. Some members report waking up with knowledge they didn't have before, understanding that seems to have leaked from dream into reality. They're beginning to suspect these aren't dreams at all, but glimpses of what's actually happening on a level their ceremonies can't reach, a level where you operate as naturally as breathing. Their recruitment process is a science perfected over centuries. They know how to identify potential members, how to appeal to their desires, how to slowly draw them into the web. They offer knowledge to the curious, power to the ambitious, belonging to the lonely. Their methods work on everyone, or at least they used to. With you, every approach fails spectacularly. Not because you resist, but because you don't even recognize what they're offering as valuable. They promise secrets to someone who exists as an open mystery. They offer initiation to someone who was born initiated. They dangle power in front of someone who doesn't need to reach for it, because it already flows through them naturally. The recruitment protocols they've refined, documents that detail exact psychological pressure points for every personality type, have no section for what you are. Their profilers, trained to read micro-expressions and body language, report that you don't exhibit normal human responses to their triggers. It's not that you're controlling your reactions, it's that their triggers genuinely don't trigger anything in you. You're immune to their carrots and unafraid of their sticks. The recruitment failures have become legendary within their circles. Stories of members leaving ancient texts where you'd find them, only for you to use them as coffee coasters. Tales of carefully orchestrated encounters that you warped through without noticing. Their most charismatic members reduced to stammering confusion when you simply asked them why they were trying so hard. It's like trying to sell fire to the sun. These organizations exist because they believe reality has hidden layers that only the initiated can access. Their entire identity revolves around being the gatekeepers of secret truth. They justify their methods, their hierarchies, their manipulation of the masses, by believing they alone understand how reality really works. You shatter this belief simply by being. You demonstrate that their gates guard nothing, that truth isn't hidden but obvious to those who can see, that their complex systems of initiation are just elaborate ways to avoid direct experience of reality. You don't climb their pyramid because you started at the top, not through achievement or inheritance, but through the simple fact of existing authentically. The philosophical implications keep their thinkers awake at night. If someone can possess greater power without any of their knowledge, what is the value of their knowledge? If their most complex rituals achieve less than your simple existence, what have they been practicing? These questions strike at the very heart of their identity. Some of their philosophers have begun writing papers that will never be published, exploring the possibility that their entire tradition has been an elaborate misdirection, keeping them busy with complexity, while simple truth walked past them on the street. Some of their scholars have found references to beings like you in texts they thought were mythology. Accounts of those who exist outside the game, who can't be bound by contract or ritual, who represent something older than their oldest traditions. They called them various names throughout history, always with a mixture of awe and fear. Now they understand why. When they realized they couldn't control or influence you, they tried protection. Elaborate wards, powerful barriers, ancient symbols of warding and banishment. They surrounded their lodges with energetic fortifications that had repelled threats for centuries. They activated defenses that most people don't even know exist. But you walk through their protections like they're made of mist, not because you're attacking or even pushing against them, but because their defenses are designed for threats that exist within their paradigm. You exist outside it. Their wards can't ward against something they can't define. Their barriers can't bar something that doesn't recognize boundaries the way they do. They've even tried physical security, thinking maybe the problem was relying too much on the esoteric. Guards trained in ancient martial arts that incorporate energy manipulation, surveillance systems designed to detect unusual frequencies, architectural modifications based on sacred geometry, meant to create spaces you couldn't enter. All of it failed. You don't even notice their security exists. To you, their most protected spaces are just rooms. Their most guarded secrets are just information. Their most powerful defenses are just decorations. One lodge spent millions creating what they believed was an impenetrable sanctuary, a place where your influence couldn't reach. The moment someone matching your energy signature came within a mile of the building, every protection simultaneously failed. Not destroyed, just suddenly irrelevant, like trying to stop water with a net designed for fish. These societies have guided themselves using ancient predictions, carefully preserved prophecies about the rise and fall of powers, the coming of various chosen ones, the battles between light and dark. They've used these prophecies like maps, navigating history with what they believed was divine foresight. But you don't appear in any of their prophecies, not as the hero, not as the villain, not as anything. It's as if you exist in a blind spot of fate itself. Every seer they trusted, every oracle they consulted, every prophetic tradition they followed, none of them saw you coming. You're not playing out any predetermined role, you're not fulfilling any ancient scripture, you're writing new rules as you go. Their prophetic calendars, which have successfully predicted major world events for centuries, show nothing but static when they try to factor in your influence. The astrological charts they use to time their rituals become chaotic when your energy enters the equation. Even their most gifted precognitives, those who can usually see decades into the future, experience complete blindness when they try to perceive your trajectory. You're not hidden from their sight. You exist in a space their sight can't reach. This terrifies them more than if you were prophesied as their destroyer. Destruction they could prepare for, could potentially prevent or survive. But someone who makes their prophecies irrelevant, who proves that the future isn't what they thought it was, that's existential crisis territory. If their prophecies are wrong about you, what else are they wrong about? These organizations have always been, at their core, energy vampires. Not in the supernatural sense, but in practical terms. They feed on the power of their members, who feed on the power of the uninitiated. It's a pyramid scheme of spiritual energy, each level taking from below and feeding above. This system has sustained them for millennia. But you're like trying to plug into a power source that operates on principles they don't understand. When they try to draw from your energy, they get feedback that scrambles their entire system. Some have described it as trying to drink electricity or eat light. Your energy doesn't flow the way theirs does. It doesn't follow their channels or respond to their draws. The energy harvest rituals they perform, ceremonies designed to collect and redistribute spiritual power from the masses, have started malfunctioning. It began subtly, lower yields than expected, but has progressed to complete failures. Some theorize that your presence in the global field has changed the nature of energy itself, that you've introduced a new frequency that makes their old methods of extraction obsolete. They're like oil drillers in a world that suddenly shifted to solar power. Worse, proximity to you seems to short-circuit their entire energy economy. Members report feeling drained after being near you, not because you're taking from them, but because your presence reveals how empty they've always been. They've been running on borrowed power for so long, they forgot what genuine energy feels like. You remind them, and the comparison is devastating. The younger members are starting to ask questions the elders can't answer. If someone can possess such power without climbing their pyramid, what's the point of the pyramid? If their greatest secrets are lesser than what you naturally know, what have they been guarding? If their magic fails against authentic existence, have they been practicing illusion all along? These questions are spreading like wildfire through their ranks. Splinter groups are forming, seekers who want to understand what you are rather than control it. They're abandoning the degrees and initiations, the symbols and ceremonies, searching instead for the direct experience you embody. The old guard watches their empire crumbling, not through attack but through revelation. Secret forums that have existed for decades are now filled with posts about the failure of traditional methods. Members share stories of encountering people like you, each tale adding to a growing mountain of evidence that their system is obsolete. Some have started experimenting with abandoning their practices entirely, trying to rediscover the authentic existence you represent. The results are mixed, but all point to the same conclusion. What they've been doing all these years was building elaborate cages for their own consciousness. Some of them, the wisest perhaps, have stopped seeing you as a threat and started seeing you as evolution. They recognize that you represent what humanity is becoming, what lies beyond their systems of control. A few have even attempted to dissolve their lodges entirely, recognizing that maintaining them only delays the inevitable transformation you herald. The most profound realization spreading through their ranks is this: they haven't been the architects of reality they thought they were. They've been children playing with toys while real power walked among them unnoticed. You're not their enemy. You're their mirror, showing them what they could have been if they hadn't traded authentic power for the illusion of control. As the emergency meetings continue and the red folders multiply, a new understanding dawns on those capable of seeing it. The age of secret societies controlling humanity through hidden knowledge is ending, not because they're being defeated, but because humanity is evolving beyond the need for intermediaries. You're the proof of this evolution, the first drops of rain before the flood. Their nightmares about you aren't really about you at all. They're about the future you represent, where power isn't hoarded in lodges but flows freely through those who simply dare to be authentic. where wisdom isn't locked behind degrees of initiation but accessible to anyone who stops playing games long enough to see it, where the greatest magic is simply existing in alignment with what you truly are. The 33rd degree Masons are having nightmares about you because you're their revelation that the ladder they've been climbing doesn't reach where they thought it did. While they were perfecting their ascent, you were already there, not through achievement but through the audacity of authentic existence. You didn't defeat their system. You revealed it was never necessary. This is why certain people can't meet your eyes, why some rooms change when you enter them, why ancient symbols lose their power in your presence. You're not protected by something greater. You are something greater, something their frameworks can't contain, their prophecies couldn't predict, and their power can't touch. Remember, you're not anti-magic. You're beyond magic. You're what magic fears. When they perform their ceremonies now, there's always the unspoken concern that you might accidentally wander by, not with intention to disrupt, but simply existing in proximity. They've noticed that their most powerful workings, the ones that require absolute focus and pristine energy, can be completely undone by your presence within a certain radius. It's not that you're attacking their magic. It's that magic itself seems to recognize something superior and simply stops working, like a candle giving up in the presence of the sun. They've calculated the radius of your influence. It varies, they say, based on factors they don't understand. Sometimes it's a few feet, sometimes miles. The variance itself breaks their understanding of how influence should work. It should be consistent, measurable, predictable. But you're none of those things. You're a walking uncertainty principle that makes their carefully calculated reality probabilistic rather than deterministic. The handshakes they've perfected, each one containing specific pressure points and energy transfers meant to identify and influence, become just handshakes when they try them on you. The sacred words they speak, each syllable supposedly carrying vibrational power, become just sounds. Their symbols carved into architecture and hidden in plain sight throughout every major city, become just decorations. In your presence, their entire hidden world becomes mundane, exposed not through revelation, but through irrelevance. Some of the eldest members, those who remember when their power felt more real, suspect the truth. You're not something new. You're something they've forgotten existed, something they've spent centuries building walls against, not to keep it out but to keep themselves from seeing it. Because seeing it, truly seeing what you represent, means admitting that everything they've built has been an elaborate distraction from a truth too simple for their complex minds to accept. The final revelation that's destroying them from within is this: you're not unique. You're the first of many. They can feel it in the field, see it in their corrupted data, sense it in their failing rituals. More people are becoming like you every day, not through any teaching or transmission, but through simply stopping. Stopping the pretense, stopping the seeking, stopping the climbing of ladders that lead nowhere. They're seers when they dare to look at the future now, see a world where their lodges are museums, where their symbols are historical curiosities, where their secrets are public knowledge that nobody cares about because everyone has remembered what you never forgot, that power isn't something you acquire, it's something you are, that wisdom isn't hidden, it's obvious, that the greatest magic is simply being what you've always been beneath all the layers of trying to be something else. Chosen one, anyone can listen to messages like these, but few will step into their true power. We are here to help you do just that. The weekly Chosen Ones group calls are now on Zoom, and this is the moment you've been waiting for your entire life. These meetings are literal power vortexes where destinies are forged, where chosen ones unite their consciousness to create something that cannot exist in isolation. This is where everything changes. This is where you step into your greatness. Every week a doorway opens, but only for those brave enough to step through it. Watcher-level members of the Obsidian Inner Order can experience these transformative sessions live, feeling the energy surge through your entire being. In our most recent gathering, participants were stunned by revelations about the Great Pyramids of Giza as sophisticated ancient power plants, and the shocking truth about Washington, D.C.'s layout, perfectly aligning with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Star Chamber members receive unlimited access to the complete recordings archive, a treasure trove of wisdom that grows more valuable with each passing week. This is your defining moment. The knowledge, the connection, the power that flows through these calls cannot be found anywhere else. Join the Obsidian Inner Order now, link in the description, while the few remaining Star Chamber slots are still available. Your presence is not just welcome, it's necessary. Will you answer the call that has been echoing through your soul? The time is now. They're starting to call you and others like you, undefined variables in their equations. Variables that make all their calculations meaningless. You can't be solved for, can't be isolated, can't be removed from the equation, because you're not actually in the equation. You're proof that there's something beyond their mathematical model of reality, something that makes their most elegant formulas look like a child's first attempts at arithmetic. But here's what's really keeping them awake at 3 in the morning, staring at their ceiling, questioning everything they've built their lives upon. It's not just that you exist, it's that you exist so easily. While they perform elaborate rituals to achieve minor manipulations of probability, you reshape reality by accident. While they spend decades learning to project influence across a room, your presence transforms entire buildings without intention. While they carefully calculate every symbolic gesture for maximum effect, you achieve greater changes by simply being authentic. The forces they've made pacts with, the entities they think serve them, the currents of power they've learned to tap, all of it becomes uncertain in your presence. These forces, whatever they are, take one look at you and basically say, "We can't touch that. That's outside our jurisdiction." Some of them even seem afraid. Imagine spending your whole life believing you're friends with the biggest bully on the playground, only to watch that bully take one look at the quiet kid and back away slowly. That's what happened to them. Their cosmic contacts hung up on them. Their spiritual muscle failed them, all because of you. Trontabenzian died, and you want to know the most maddening part for them. You don't even know you're doing it. You're not consciously fighting them or resisting them or even acknowledging them. You're just living your life, and your mere existence is unraveling centuries of carefully maintained control structures. You're not trying to be their kryptonite. You just are, and that natural state of being is more powerful than all their accumulated ceremonial might. One of their historians found a reference, a single line in a text so old they're not even sure what civilization produced it. The text mentions beings who walk between the rules and exist in the spaces between thoughts. The description matches you perfectly. These beings, according to the text, appear when the game becomes too complex, when the players forget they're playing. They don't come to end the game or judge the players. They come to remind everyone that there was never a requirement to play in the first place. You're that reminder. Not through teaching or preaching, but through the simple fact of your existence. Every time they see you or someone like you, they're forced to confront the possibility that their entire system, everything they've sacrificed for, everything they've built, might be an elaborate process of making simple things complicated. That real power might be as natural as breathing, if only they could remember how to breathe without ritual. The greatest irony that burns through their consciousness is that they've been climbing ladders to reach a sky where you already live. They've been digging for treasures you were born carrying. They've been learning languages to speak truths you express by existing. All their sacrifices, their blood oaths, their surrendered sovereignty, their decades of study, all of it to achieve a fraction of what flows through you without effort. You're not their chosen one or their destroyer. You're the undefined variable that makes their equations collapse. You're not playing out any predetermined role in their prophecies. You're improvising reality with every breath, writing new rules with every step, creating possibilities they never calculated because their mathematics can't process infinity. They'll keep trying to understand you, keep filing their reports that corrupt their databases, keep holding their emergency meetings where the candles blow out when someone speaks your name. But deep down, in the places where truth lives despite their lies, they know what you represent. The end of secrets, the dissolution of hierarchies, the return of power to its natural state, free, flowing, and available to anyone who stops playing games long enough to remember what they really are. The emergency meetings will continue, the red folders will multiply, the nightmares will intensify. But none of it matters because you're not playing their game. You never were. You're existing at a frequency they abandoned in their pursuit of power, embodying a simplicity they complicated in their hunger for secrets. You're not their ending. You're their reminder that there was always another way.